Welcome to Digital Leap, the podcast where we help businesses and societies leap into a digitally superior future while fostering inclusivity among diverse communities. I'm Faison, aspiring technopreneur and student at Brown University, and I'm excited to be your guide on this journey into the world of cutting-edge technologies, human-centeredness in tech, design thinking, and digital transformations. I'm excited to say that we have a full schedule ahead of us, so stick with us as we continue to tackle topics such as digital transformation, AI and ML and its effect on businesses, cybersecurity, IoT in modern businesses, and many more. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our team. So first, Omar Chowdhury, he's a computer science student at Brown, human-computer interaction and digital transformation from Stanford, and entrepreneurship from MIT. And he's also a founding member of multiple tech startups and the COO of DirAction. And we have Danish Qureshi as well, applied math and engineering student at Brown University. He is a NASA research scholar. He's conducted research with NIH's All of Us program. And on top of this, he is also the chief strategic advisor for digital directions in their US chapter.
Thank you for having us, Faison.
So I'd just love to jump into it. I'd love to pose a question. So Omar, what is the purpose of this podcast? What makes it so special?
For sure. First of all, thank you so much, Faison, for this generous introduction. So a bit about this podcast, this digital leap that we're starting about, right? And this, as you just said, basically revolves around all of the digital transformations that are going around us, right? And basically the factors and the agents that bring in those digital transformations surrounding us. Let it be like RPA, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, blockchain, and all of those things, right? So it's basically going to be talking about those cutting edge digital technologies. And one of the most important part of this podcast that actually makes it unique as well is that it's going to be focusing on the human centric element in tech and cutting edge digital technologies. So that is exactly what makes this podcast special. And then, as you just very rightly mentioned, that we're also going to be having people from the academia, from the industry, tech influencers guiding our way into this digitally superior future that you just spoke about. So yeah, I'm quite excited about it, and let's see how it goes. Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much, Omar. And another special thing about this podcast is the passion, as you can see with Omar. And as well, we're going to be bringing the passion into all of our discussions around tech. So Danish, I have a question for you. To the listeners, who exactly are we talking to in this podcast?
So, of course, as Omar was just saying, we'll be bringing in a lot of people from tech, whether it be in the academics, whether it be in the former founders of tech companies. So, of course, the classic answer that everyone's expecting me to say is just people who are interested in tech, who are interested in the future of technology, specifically with the direction as we move to that human-centered future. That being said, I feel like, and as someone who grew up not necessarily revolving around tech, I feel like as I'm moving towards that passion in technology, anyone with a slight inkling of curiosity moving towards that future, how is this going to look? How have people in the past done what they've done, let's say in the technology boom in the early 2000s, to moving towards that future, towards that ML, AI centered lifestyle? And on top of that, more specifically towards those who are those technopreneurs, those entrepreneurs who want to get involved in technology, who want to move towards creating solutions to problems that exist in our modern era. There's a huge need for those technopreneurs, and we feel that this will hopefully drive that nail towards that ability to solve problems using MLAI, especially given a lot of the cool lineup of professors and founders in the next coming weeks. So looking forward to having them on, and looking forward to having the viewers ask us questions and be excited for the next episode of Digital Leap.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to emphasize a point from Danish is we are going to try to implement some interactiveness with the viewers as well, to get some questions going for a lot of our guests, to engage in some discussions as well. So thank you so much. So I'd love to pose some personal questions. Share with the viewers, just so the viewers can get to know a little bit more about us, a little bit more about, the team. What's a fun fact about you guys? I'd love to hear from Omar first.
Right. So fun facts about me. Let me think. First of all, as I just like mentioned, I'm a huge chai lover, right? And so yeah, I love chai, number one. And the chai that I make is, I guess, the best chai ever, right? And I think you guys might agree with me on this. And all of my friends out there at Brown, all across the US, Pakistan, all across the globe, in fact, would admit that Umar Chaudhary makes the best chai, right? So yeah, so I make the best chai, number one. And then I think a fun fact is that I love horseback riding. So yeah, that's like usually my thing when uh, so the highlight of my summers is usually going to the mountains and riding my horse. So that's like, that maybe is something that is a bit different about me, maybe a fun fact. So yeah.
You know, I will have to add something to that. He's the second best person in the world at making chai, only after my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
So thank you, Omar. That sounds cool, going into the mountains on the horse, riding into the sunset. Fascinating. For me, a fun fact about me is, I guess, similar along the lines to chai. I just like cooking. You know, I like to cook. I wouldn't consider myself the greatest cook in the world. You know, like Omar's the best at making chai. But I still like, I
You're
love
just
to
too
cook.
humble.
I think it's fun, especially now as we're getting into the fall era. There's going to be a lot of baking, whether it be pumpkin pies, apple pies, or just a nice desi dish like a good chicken curry and rice is fun.
All right. Anyways, I'd love to move on from chai time with a question for Omar. So, I mean, you talked about a lot about what the podcast is and the discussions, but there are other podcasts out there that touch on tech, that touch on entrepreneurship. What makes this podcast different? What makes it unique?
Thank you for this question, because Faizan, this podcast is something which is very close to my heart, because the thing, as I guess Danish also referenced towards it when you were talking about the target market audience for this podcast, is that this podcast is not like made for certain people, certain group of people. This is in fact made for everyone, because digital transformations are actually happening around us, right? And when we say that around us, the central key element are the people. Real digital transformation happening around real people, right? So this human-centric element and this inclusivity is actually what makes this podcast unique and what makes this podcast stand out. So I think I cannot stress on this enough, that as we're moving into this digitally superior future, as we call it, I think the human-centered element is the most important part of it. And that is exactly what this podcast is going to establish.
Thank you so much, Omar, for that. And I also wanted to emphasize, as we move along throughout these episodes, the Brown University connection. So we're going to be hearing a lot from a lot of professors, from a lot of students, from a lot of alum, entrepreneurs in general. So I just want to mention that this is a Brown University student-run podcast, and we will be using that name to reach out to professors, reach out to alum, and get them to join us on this podcast. So, and I wanted to thank you guys for today, for this discussion.
My pleasure.
So, and to the viewers, thank you for joining us on Digital Leap for this introduction. We hope you're as excited as we are to explore the digital future together. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, podcast platforms, and LinkedIn. We'll be linking them down in the description. And share this podcast with your friends and colleagues as well, and fellow entrepreneurs, fellow technopreneurs, fellow thinkers as well. Stay tuned for more episodes every Wednesday, where we continue to bridge the technological divides and foster inclusivity among diverse communities.